We're a cash crop, tomatoes, sugar beets, and cucumber farmers. We farm about 3,000 acres. We have 140 acres of tomatoes. We've been growing tomatoes for the same company for 75 years. The name of the company has changed, but the location and the product's still the same. My son is the fourth generation to grow tomatoes for that company. We grow 2 cultivars of tomatoes. They're grown specifically for whole pack quality tomatoes. They would be sold under the Almer brand in the grocery store. And they're actually an heirloom varieties. So they're open pollinated. They've been around for more than 20 years. They're the size, the shape, the peel, the way they peel, and the color is what makes our product the product that's in the grocery store. This crop behind me, I would consider is a good crop for us. Generally, yields targeting between 40 and 50 ton to the acre. Some are higher than 50 ton. That can happen quite a bit now. It's a good crop. One of the advantages of the crop, it allows us to keep our key employees busy all season long. We have 2 full-time employees, and then we hire another 4 to 5 part-time employees based on the season. We use all local help. Some of the people that have worked for us for 15 years. I kind of joked that it was the original gig economy because we would get people that were either between jobs or they're just looking for a short-term employment just to make a little extra money. And we've been able to get by with the local help. When I first started in this business, we would get transplants that were grown in soil in Georgia, pulled, put on a truck, brought out here. In the 80s, they went to plug plant production in local greenhouses. And then we receive the plants in trays in the spring. And then those trays is what we plant out of. One of the things that's new in our operation is we've gone to a robotic transplanter. So where each plant used to be grabbed by hand, put in the machine, and then the machine would plant them. Now a robot will pull those plants out. So now we just feed trays into the machine. The planting season usually from May the 10th till October. And they use a fair amount of fertility. So we'll be applying fertilizer throughout the season. Here we have more of an organic black sandier soil. We do grow on mineral sandy soils. The sandier soils are good for drainage. They're also good for harvesting because if the ground gets a little bit wet, because we do harvest 7 days a week. The tomato factory needs tomatoes 24 hours a day. So those types of soils will grow good quality tomato and we'll be able to harvest them. This is a 42 acre field. For the size of our operation and what our daily quota will be, we'll probably be about 13 or 14 days in this field harvesting tomatoes. We harvest about 3 acres a day. Our season generally will start around the 20th of August, and we like to try to have things wrapped up by October the 10th. This year, I think we'll be done a little bit earlier because we've lost a fair amount of production due to the excessive rain earlier in the season. The way we are able to stagger that production cycle is by staggering the planting in the greenhouse and then staggering the transplanting out in the field. So we will usually start planting around May the 10th, depending on the frost and the weather, and we will plant all the way to June the 10th. So by stretching out the planting season, we can stretch out the harvest season. And it can be a good crop if you have a good yield. The price for the crop is negotiated yearly. In our company, we will elect a couple growers to represent our grower base. They will negotiate the terms and the price of the contract for the growing season. So we know what we're going to get paid before we plant. And that gives some stability. Of course, the negotiations are negotiations and price can vary a little bit, but it's a very stable crop year after year. This is a typical tomato harvester used in our growing area. We have obviously a driver, one driver pulling the wagon beside. One of the interesting things now with the GPS and the auto steering, that technology actually drives the tractor. It allows the operator to concentrate on running the machine. The tomatoes are picked up by the rotating discs and gathering chains and put on the incline conveyor. That brings them up to what we call a brush shaker. And that's the part that removes the tomatoes from the vine. And it does that by a set of fingers that will rock back and forth, and the tomatoes will fall away from the vines. And the vine is carried out the back of the machine. On this side of the machine, the tomatoes will be conveyed across the back. An air blast will blow small vines and leaves out the side of the machine. They'll come forward to an electronic color sorter, which uses reflection to determine a red or a green tomato. The green tomatoes will be rejected by a air blast finger. And then in this area, we have the sorting belt. Typically, we'll have 4 people on this part of the machine. They'll be removing any dirt or foreign material and tomatoes that aren't suitable for going to the factory. One of the challenges we've had this year with the excess of rain early in the growing season, wherever the water would lay on the field for, say, more than 24 hours, we would get severe plant damage. In some areas, the plants are completely dead. In other areas, such as behind me, the plants are stunted. And while they may appear to be a healthy plant, they'll just produce small green tomatoes that won't be suitable for processing. So unfortunately, we have to use the color sorters on the machine to knock them out to continue our harvest schedule. And while it appears there's tomatoes here, the net result to the grower will be severe lost production. In certain areas, we received 10 inches of rain in 5 hours. Other areas, 7 inches. So when you look at the total rainfall for the season, the numbers may not be that bad, but when you receive that much rain in a short period of time and the water can't get away, it just results in this loss that we're seeing here. I think across the growing community in Ontario this year, I think we're looking at 20 to 30% loss. In our own operation, we're probably closer to 40% loss across all of our acres. And in this particular area, we would probably be 80 to 90% loss just in this part of the field. Obviously, weather is the biggest challenge, and everything kind of can center around that. You can get diseases in your crop that will really impact your production. Bacterial diseases, so early blight, late blight can have a big impact. The bacterial spot will affect fruit quality. The insects, we are able to manage them, but they can also impact production. Stink bug is a challenge. It will pierce the skin, and while it may not appear to have very much damage, when it's peeled, that damage will show up, and then that won't be suitable to put in the can. So that's another one of the challenges that we have. And then I think there's challenges that we're still learning about. Soil-borne diseases that are very hard to identify, and also things like nematodes, and how, even a small population of nematodes can create vectors for soil-borne disease to get into your plant. And sometimes it's a silent robber. You might have a good crop, but you could have had an excellent crop, except for maybe that nematode soil-borne disease relationship that it's really hard to identify. So we have a host of crop protectants that we would apply basically from the beginning of the season throughout the season. We would be targeting insects, disease, and also weeds. And so we try, and then we'll do inter-row cultivation. And we'll usually do all of our acres with a hand weeding pass to finish. This year with the weather, we've had pretty good luck with weed control. So this field didn't require a hand weeding pass, but normally we would do a hand weeding pass throughout the season. We try to grow on a 4-year to 5-year rotation with other crops. That allows a break in any plant diseases that might build up. So that's a good agronomic practice. With the tomatoes, especially the early ones, we'll plant a cover crop as soon as we harvest. We'll plant oats and sometimes oats and radish, depending on the field and depending on which crop we want to plant the next season. That just allows some crop residue to protect the soil over the winter. And as we rotate through our crop cycles, we try to leave residue on the soil at all times. It can be a challenge with tomatoes because in the spring, the crop residue can give you a little bit of trouble with planting, but there's a lot of farmers that are making really good advancements in doing that, and I think it's an environmental benefit for everybody.